Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Jeffrey Lazarus, and you are watching Welcome to Saints Row 4 on the Gaming Vector. Saints Row 4, obviously the fourth title in the Saints Row franchise, developed by Volition, and this time published by Deep Silver. The question is, after the property was appropriated by Deep Silver due to the collapse of THQ, is the newest entry in the franchise still any good? And we're going to take a look at it here, and I'm going to give some of my thoughts. So let's just go ahead and jump in here. And as you can see, we still have campaign and co-op campaigns. So let's go ahead and jump directly into my last save. And actually, we will load game so that you can see how far into the game this is. It's about 3 hours, 11% completed. So let's jump straight in here and take a look at the newest title in the Saints Row franchise. And you're going to notice immediately that a few things are different, but for the most part, the game is still very much the same as it has been, at least the same as it was in Saints Row 3. So as we just wait to load in here, now, before we get directly into any gameplay, there you can see my character. You can also see a glowing door. We'll get to what that is here in a minute. But first things first, let's take a look at our options. Now, this can't be accessed outside of the game from as far as I've been able to find. But within the options menu, you have your controller options. You have your various control schemes. You have your difficulty settings, of which there are 3. You have your display settings, which VSync on gameplay and cutscenes, film grain, minimap view. And you have your audio settings. And what I'm going to recommend is you turn the voice audio up higher than the music and effects, because with as much stuff as can be going on in this game at one point in time, it gets kind of difficult to hear the audio from the other characters. Also, I have subtitles on for your convenience. Now that we've gone through that, let's hop into our pause menu within the game, and you'll notice it's different than it was in Saints Row 3, but it's still very easily navigated. So here we have our map. We are in the city of Steelport once again, sort of. And as you can see, these icons should, for the most part, be familiar, such as the green icons are your different shops. These are the ones that I have not found yet, mainly because I haven't gone to them yet. And things such as, let's find one that is familiar. I don't know that there are any unlocked on the map that are familiar, but you can see there are various other miniature objectives, such as, climbing a tower, which is a little more tricky than it sounds, or things such as a hotspot where you have to shut down generators. All these different little mini objectives. There's a mayhem objective. So, pretty basic stuff. Now, as we go through, let's take a look at the upgrades very quickly. So, this is a very similar upgrade menu to the previous title in the franchise. So, you can go in and say, let's look at combat. So, you can see carry more pistol ammo, carry explosive ammo, dual-wield pistols, super strength melee, a new weapon, so on and so forth. And you get the same with vehicles. It's a lot of very similar stuff to what we saw in Saints Row 3 in that respect. Here we have our phone. These are various contacts, so we can call and get a vehicle delivered or call for backup from our gang members. However, that's not near as important in this game as it was before, and you'll see why shortly. Here we can actually... Oh, well, it's not actually going to do it right now because I don't have any kind of packed up, but if you remember in the previous titles, You could gain properties that would generate money over time, and then you could basically withdraw that money. This is the same mechanic right here. Also, the music options, you have the radio and the mixtape. You can also listen to music outside of the car, which is a nice touch. We have quests, which I'm not actually going to go into this menu so that there are no spoilers. I'm going to avoid any of the main storyline stuff. Now, over here, you'll notice we have powers. In this game, you actually get superpowers. So, for instance, super sprint, and then you can get reduced damage while sprinting, increased speed, so on and so forth, as well as wall running. Actually, I'm going to... Oh, I don't have enough to get wall running. As well as we have a blast ability that can be upgraded with different elements. Right now, all we have is the freeze. So, not only is this a Saints Row game, but it's also very much a superhero game. Now, this glowing door. In this game, there are no safe houses, because what has happened is this is all taking place in a simulation of the city of Steelport from the third game. The safe houses do not exist in the simulation, so you use these gateways, which allow you to exit the simulation, much the same way you do with your safe houses. So you've got your wardrobe, where you can change the overall look of your character. You have your garage, where you can take a look at your vehicles, as well as customizing your vehicles. As you can see there, we've got a couple of customized cars. You can take a look at your weapon cache, which is very much the same way as it was in the old game. However, oh, we've got a few new weapons here I hadn't noticed. What else do we have? And the weapon customization works a lot like it did in the previous games. However, you can also custom skin your weapons. Also, you can customize your gang by putting different types of characters into each of these slots. So very much the same as the way it was in the previous titles. As well as giving your gang different vehicles to drive around in. Pretty basic stuff for the most part. None of this stuff is really new to the franchise. So let's go ahead and let's get our SMG. Now, didn't mean to show you that quite yet, but if you can get a good look at our SMG, you can see there's actually camo on it. That is one of the things that you can do if you're big into the aesthetics, is you can change the aesthetics of your weapon. There's certain sets for different weapons. So what you saw just before that was actually the super sprint. Now let's take a look at that. As well as the wall jumping ability. So, what you'll notice here is Saints Row has very much become a superhero game in Saints Row 4. You'll also see these data clusters scattered around. Those are what you need to upgrade your powers. They are practically everywhere. They're usually not very hard to find, although some of them could be considered difficult to get your hands on. You can also do a much higher super jump, and if I could not get caught on the lip of the building, I would show it off to you. You can also jump up, and then by holding the sprint button, you can actually glide prototype style. Or, choose your other open world superhero game that has the same kind of abilities. So that makes movement in this game and traversal of the terrain much easier. Also, the super sprint will allow you to just smash through vehicles and pedestrians. The main issue with the super sprint is that while it is limited because you have a stamina meter, it also makes cars more or less useless. So, getting into the whole vehicle customization and everything, while it's fun to kind of make your own cool-looking cars, there's not really much reason to do so. Also, not sure what this is, but I'm going to actually just avoid it for now. I'm going to try and stay away from any storyline stuff, so we're just going to do a little running around and show you some of the gameplay. Oh, there's actually another thing I can show you right over here, which is a new element. So if you remember in previous games, you would be able to purchase different, basically purchase different businesses and buildings. In this one, since it's in a simulation, you have to hack it. So I will go ahead and, hold on, let me super punch this guy. Oh, we actually have a flashpoint too. Alright, well, let's go deal with the flashpoint, and then I will show you the hacking. This way you can see some of the combat. And here are the aliens that have put us in the simulation. Also, I'm about to die. Wow. So we'll gather this data cluster up. This is the one thing about this game. Since you have the super speed, you're never really in much danger of dying, honestly, because you can almost always get away from your enemy. So let's use our freeze ability. And then we can smash those guys into little pieces. And as we wait for that to recharge... Oh, come on. Recharge. As you can see, gunplay hasn't really changed much. It's very much the same type of gunplay as we had in Saints Row 3. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't make it exceptionally good gunfighting either. It's passable. It's okay. It does what it needs to do, but it's not fantastic. Oh, let's bash these guys. And as you can see, the enemies actually drop health now, which does make things a bit easier. Let's punch this guy off the side of the building. And there we are. So we've completed a flashpoint, which means we've liberated another area of the city. Much like you would in the previous games where you're trying to take over the city, in this one you're doing pretty much the same thing. Now, we actually need to get rid of our notoriety, which is the red bars wrapping around our minimap in the corner. So we're just going to see if we can't get away and go hide somewhere, and then I can show you the business hacking, basically. And it looks like we are relatively safe over here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So this will remind a lot of people of the original BioShock's hacking, as it did for me. So basically, what this boils down to... Whoops. Oh, okay. Gotcha. Oh, and I'm running out of time. Quickly. Yep, hack failed. But you can see the basic idea there. You have to get from one end to the other. And that one probably actually failed because I've done about 12 or 13 of them, so now they're actually starting to get difficult. And just kick these guys into the air because it's so fun to watch them splatter on the ground. So, as I was saying, it's much less, wow. It's much less a Saints Row GTA kind of gangster game now, and it's become much more of a... Oh, wow. More of these guys. It's become much more of a superhero game, and there's nothing really wrong with that. It's a pretty decent superhero game. But if you were looking to play Saints Row to get that, gangster game experience like they had in the first Saints Row and the second Saints Row, and to some degree in the third one, although the third one went, just way over the top. This is even more over the top than the third one was. You can see the alien spaceships in the sky. You can see all these strange tower structures that obviously weren't built by humans, such as that giant blue tower over there. Whoop. Fell off the building. But as far as character customization and whatnot, it still has very much the same kind of customization options that you had in Saints Row 3 as far as building your character and making outfits for them. There's a few new options, but for the most part, it still feels very, very similar. Also, I'm getting... Wow, really? I have not seen these guys before. How about you die? How about you crash? It is rather empowering to play around with the different powers. Also, since you do have these superpowers, there's no fall damage, so you can just jump off the highest building, land, and you'll be fine. But yeah, adding the superpowers makes even just running around the city at least more fun than it was trying to drive through and necessarily navigate traffic and things like that. Granted, the driving in the old games was still pretty fun because, you could really smash up some cars and do some damage with a vehicle. Unfortunately, now you almost don't need a vehicle. Yeah, still very much the same kind of tone of the game with the real over-the-top stuff. They've just gone even further with it. Also, for some reason, they've removed water textures. At least when you're up close to it. Yeah, basically, I don't want to do another flashpoint. As I said, basically, I'm just running around the city here so you guys can kind of get a feel for some of the gameplay and the movement. But what it really boils down to is that this is not Saints Row 1, this is not Saints Row 2, this isn't even Saints Row 3. It doesn't play like those games. It does in certain aspects. The gunplay feels the same, driving the vehicles feels the same, but it by no means is the same type of game. It's way over the top. It very much feels it feels more like a better version of Prototype than it does like an actual Saints Row title. And that may be disappointing to some people. I personally, while I really liked the Saints Row franchise because, I really like kind of that gritty gangster thing that they went with the first couple. It was still over the top and whatnot, but they knew how to have fun with it. But it was still very much that type of game. Now they've gone just completely off the rails and made... and I just went in a huge circle back to pretty much where I started. But they've gone very much like off the rails, just making the most over-the-top kind of superhero game that they possibly could. And for the most part, if you treat it that way, you'll have a real good time with it. If you treat it as a superhero game that's just set in the Saints Row universe, then you'll have a good time with it. If you go into it thinking you're getting Saints Row 1 or 2 again, then you're going to be sorely disappointed. And honestly, if that's what you want, I would wait till GTA 4. It's only a month away. But yeah, that's pretty much Saints Row 4 in a nutshell, at least up to this point. Oh, another flashpoint. These things are everywhere. But yes, that's pretty much Saints Row 4 up to this point. It is a lot of fun if you go into it expecting it to be what it is. And what it is a superhero game. It's not the gangster game from the old days of Saints Row. it still keeps some of those tropes, and you're still very much, kind of a bad guy. You can kill civilians with no reason, although I suppose you could do that in Prototype as well. But yeah, just that's the main thing I just want to get across here is, and obviously you can tell by the gameplay, that this is not your typical Saints Row game. This is not your typical gangster game, your GTA. It still maintains those tropes, but it's very much built to be a superhero game. And as I said, if you go into it thinking like that, then you'll have a much better time than if you go into it expecting it to be Saints Row 2. So I'm actually going to take this truck over and drop it off at the garage just for fun, and so you can see a little bit of the driving before we end here. But yeah, as you can, you probably can't tell because you're not actually sitting here with a controller in your hand, but if you played Saints Row 3, it doesn't feel like they changed the driving at all, and that's actually not a bad thing, because the driving was really, really good. At least in my personal opinion, I preferred it over the way that cars handle it in Grand Theft Auto 4, so that's a bit of personal preference, I understand. And I just want you guys to understand that as well. But yeah, very much a step in a new direction for the franchise. It retains the tropes. Oh, actually, here's the place I'm looking for. It retains the tropes it retains all of the tropes from those old style games, but it is very much a new title in the franchise. It's very much a new type of game. It just maintains some of that old stuff because otherwise it wouldn't feel like a Saints Row game anymore. Also, using your powers to knock people into the sky is incredibly satisfying. So, would I recommend this game? I would, as I said earlier, given the caveat that you go into it knowing that this is not that gangster game anymore. If you want that, you should probably go check out GTA 5 next month. But if you want just a fun romp with some superhero powers that just happens to contain guns, then this is definitely worth looking at, because this is a very good game for what it is. Glitchy as it might be. And with that, I think we're actually going to end this video. Ah, she has a pistol. With that, I think we're going to end this video. And I will see you guys next time. As always, I have been your host, Jeffrey Lazarus. And thank you for watching.